Welcome into this week's edition of the AHSAA Weekly. I'm John Holder. This is your inside look at everything going on with the Alabama High School Athletic Association. We are into the semifinals of the Class 1A through 6A football state playoffs, and the executive director of the Alabama High School Athletic Association, Steve Savarese, will be along to talk about the excitement building toward those semifinal games coming up across the state of Alabama this week. Speaking of those semifinal games, we've got two of those on WOTM that will be broadcast statewide this week. One is the 6A South Alabama semifinal game. That features Opelika traveling to Spanish Fort. And we've got the head football coaches of both teams with us tonight, Eric Speakman of Opelika, Ben Blackman of Spanish Fort. Also, we will be bringing you the 2A North Alabama semifinal game. That features rivals Fife and Collinsville. Head coach of the Fife Red Devils, Paul Benefield, also the head coach of the Collinsville Panthers, Ernie Willingham, will join us tonight as well. And we're going to take a look at the unified game that's coming up. That's the special needs football game that will take place before all the Super 7 on Wednesday at 3:30 in the afternoon at Jordan-Hare Stadium. And we have the principal from Vestavia Hills High School, Tyler Burgess, along to talk about this year's unified game. And Mark Jones, Director of Officials for the Alabama High School Athletic Association, will also join us to talk about some big news with instant replay coming out of last week's 7A semifinal games. All of this and much more on this week's edition of the AHSAA Weekly. WOTM, your new home for high school sports in Alabama. The road to Jordan-Hare goes through WOTM this Friday for the Class 6A South semifinal. The Opelika Bulldogs traveling to Spanish Fort to take on the Toros. And stay with WOTM December 4th at 7 p.m. for live coverage of the 7A state championship game with defending champion Central Phoenix City in a rematch with the Thompson Warriors. WOTM, your exclusive TV home for the AHSAA Super 7. We are back on the AHSAA Weekly. It is one of the most exciting times of the year in all of high school sports, talking about the state high school football playoffs, and we are in the semifinal rounds with the North Alabama and South Alabama championship games coming up. Our very own Michael Giddens caught up with the executive director of the Alabama High School Athletic Association, Steve Savarese, to talk about the football playoffs.
Coach, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great, Michael. I hope you are as well.
We got some quarterfinal matchups last night. You're up there and for the meetings for the semifinals. We had some great games. First off, in 1A, we had the powerhouses, all 8 number 1 seeds advanced, and 4 of those teams had to lose. We've got some good matchups going in 1A. And then in 6A, we had the 2 4 seeds, Spanish Fort and Park Crossing. They had to play each other. One of them had to go home. It was Park Crossing as Spanish Fort advances to the semifinals. We're going to have Spanish Fort hosting Opelika for our WOTM game of the week for the semifinal Friday, this upcoming Friday. But Coach, just what are your overall thoughts on how the quarterfinals went?
Well, I'm so proud of our schools, but most important, I'm thankful, especially during this Thanksgiving season, for all the blessings God's bestowed upon us to allow us to have these opportunities that we have to teach life lessons to students through sport. Last night, I was at the Hoover-Thompson game. What an awesome setting, an awesome school they have there, facilities, 2 very well-coached teams, just a great football game with Thompson coming out on top. But all of our games are going to be like that this week. And everybody talks about number 1 seeds. We have a lot of rematches. This is a week of rematches. We have a lot of teams in the same regions playing each other, because there's one thing you know about the Alabama High School Athletic Association playoffs. The record doesn't matter. And it's who gets hot at the right time of year, what communities come out and support their teams to provide that enthusiasm and that little extra drive that those kids need to win. And it's just a great setting. I'll be at the Andalusia, UMS Wright game, Spanish Fort, Opelika game next Friday. Places will be packed. There'll be great football games. And unfortunately, one of those teams has to lose, but all of them have had just great seasons. And so we're so proud of all of our teams. And Michael, I know we're talking about football, but I also want to bring up swimming. We have 3 sectional swimming meets going on right now. Kids are qualifying beginning last night through today to go to the state swimming finals, which is at Auburn. at the same time our state championship football games occur. So this is just a great time. We have basketball going on, wrestling, bowling, where our kids have a lot of opportunities. And during Thanksgiving especially, we should all give thanks for those opportunities.
Coach, you mentioned it as well earlier, the rematches that we've got going on. And we've got a bunch coming up, 1A through 6A. I think 3A, 4A, and 5A are all region rematches in the semifinals.
Rematches, that's right. Every program is putting in, just the ones who are there now, they're all putting in the same amount of effort to win. They started long before football started. As soon as the season's over, they start working for the next year in the weight room and conditioning and skill development. They're all doing, so everybody's put so much in to this game, and we just can't define our folks by winning because they create winners. They have the opportunity to make a difference in a child's life every day. And even though there'll be severe disappointment for half of our teams this week, when they reflect back, they're going to be so proud of what they accomplished. Most importantly, they're going to be better human beings for having participated. And that's why we do what we do, whether it's a region matchup or whether it's two new teams playing each other. It's not the final score that truly matters. It's what we teach children as they move forward.
Coach, it's been great having you on the show, and I know you had the meetings to attend, and we'll have some great semifinal games, as well as looking forward to the Super 7, which begins Wednesday the 4th of December. So, Coach.
Thank you, Michael. Thanks for having me very much, and I look forward to seeing you in Spanish Fort Friday night, and happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving to you, too. That was Coach Steve Savarese, AHSAA Executive Director, joining us on AHSAA Weekly. We'll be back after this.
WOTM, your new home for high school sports in Alabama. The road to Jordan-Hare goes through WOTM this Friday for the Class 6A South semifinal. The Opelika Bulldogs traveling to Spanish Fort to take on the Toros. And stay with WOTM December 4th at 7 p.m. for live coverage of the 7A State Championship game with defending champions Central Phoenix City in a rematch with the Thompson Warriors. WOTM, your exclusive TV home for the AHSAA Super 7. The AHSAA Weekly continues, and we are going to talk more semifinal round football in Class 1A through 6A. A couple of big games coming up around the state of Alabama that you'll see here on WOTM. One is the 6A semifinal game, and that is going to feature Opelika and Spanish Fort. Head coach of the Opelika Bulldogs, Eric Speakman, will be with us. Also, Brian Blackman. He's the head coach of the Spanish Fort Toros. We also caught up with another game that you're going to see here on WOTM statewide. That's the game between Fife and Collinsville in Class 2A in the North Alabama Championship game. The head coach of the Fife Red Devils, Paul Benefield, head coach of the Collinsville Panthers, Ernie Willingham, are going to join us here in just a moment. And also the Unified game coming up. Vestavia Hills will be taking on Baldwin County. That's at 3:30 Wednesday afternoon at Jordan-Hare Stadium. The principal at Vestavia Hills High School, Tyler Burgess, also talks about the Unified game right now.
And now joined by Vestavia Hills principal Tyler Burgess. Mr. Burgess, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing fine. Good to see you.
Mr. Burgess, we're here to talk about the Unified game. Vestavia Hills taking on Baldwin County. It's a rematch from last year. But first, can you just explain to all our viewers what exactly is the Unified game?
Certainly. So the Unified game is put together through the Special Olympics of Alabama, and it's an opportunity for our students in our life skills courses, our students with special needs in our public schools to compete in flag football versus their peers in other schools. It's a great opportunity. It's also a way for our students, we call them Unified Partners, who are not special needs students, to work with our students and play with them on the field. And it is just an incredible experience for all involved, parents, players, coaches, to be able to see this happen and to get to this level.
Now, what are the differences between a football game that everyone's used to seeing and then a Unified game? Are there any special rules or circumstances that come about when playing these games?
There are. So for those who might follow flag football in general, which has a different set of rules than typical football, it's your basic flag football you played in PE. It's a shorter field. There's some down and distance differences, a little bit of scoring differences. But other than that, and a number of players on the field, of course. But other than that, it's football. You know, passing, throwing, catching, rushing the quarterback, making big plays. and getting excited when good things happen.
We got to remember in this situation, it's not about winning and losing, it's about having fun. Can you just talk about the perspective that's brought watching these kids go out there and play a sport they love, no matter what the end result is?
Absolutely, and so these guys, they get to see their peers in school play football, play basketball, and other sports, and they cheer them on. They cheer them on hard. And at Vestavia High School, when you play one Rebel, you play us all, and they truly believe that too. And so this is an opportunity for their peers to get to cheer them on and support them in something big. And they are put on the stage just like their peers are, and for them to experience that is just pure joy. For those involved to see them compete. But it's not, like you said, it's not just about the competition. What's been wonderful about this game the last several years that we've been a part of this and I've been able to see it is no matter the outcome at the end of the game, it's all sportsmanship. And these kids just, the pure joy that they have of being out there, they get over the loss in about 2 minutes and then it's just all smiles and hugs and celebration. And that, to see that and to see them be able to do that is a model for the rest of us and how we should to look at our opportunities and really take hold of those things that we have and appreciate the blessings that we receive in life. Because if these kids can go out there and do it with the adversity that they've had in life, then any of us can do it.
Coach, that is very true and truly awesome to hear. Thank you so much for your time, and we'll be looking forward to that Vestavia Hills Baldwin County Unified title game coming up soon.
Thank you, sir. Go Rebels.
We're now joined by Spanish Fort head coach Ben Blackman. Coach, how are you doing this morning?
Doing great. It's feeling blessed to be here in Montgomery and be here meeting another week.
Yes, sir. Coach, you win in the quarterfinals. You defeat Park Crossing. Can you just talk about how that game went? You win 28-21. Can you just talk about the events of that game and advancing to the semifinals?
Yes, we had a great opponent in Park Crossing, and they actually got up on us a couple of times, and our kids just had to fight back and we were able to get a stop and score and go ahead, and then ended up getting an interception right at the end of the game to nail the ball out. I was really, really proud of our kids and the resiliency they showed all game.
And Coach, Park Crossing, they've been kind of the Cinderella of the whole state tournament, especially 6A. But a lot of people forget you were a 4 seed coming in this too. You take off Cinderella's slipper, and now you've got it on yourself. Can you just talk about being a 4 seed in the semifinals and hosting a game and having a chance to go to Jordan-Hare after just barely getting to the playoffs?
Yeah, this is nothing new for Spanish Fort. That community and our community that we live in had a lot of success in a short period of time. And we told our kids all along, it doesn't matter how you get in and you just find a way to win each week. You take each week one at a time and you're 0-0 every time you line up on Friday night.
And you'll have another chance to start a game 0-0 this Friday as you take on Opelika. Now you'll be hosting that game. That'll be our WOTM game of the week this Friday. I know you haven't had a lot of time to prepare, but what do you know about Opelika?
Well, I know it's a school that's got rich tradition. I coached there for my first 7 years and under Spence McCracken, and I know those kids play hard. They love the game of football. They're hungry, and they're going to come down and give us the best game they've played.
And while you were there assisting at Opelika, you got to know Opelika's current head coach, Eric Speakman. Can you just talk about your relationship with him and looking forward to getting to face him in a semifinal game?
Yeah, we actually both started at Opelika about the same time, and we were on the same staff together and had some big celebrations together at Opelika. And, we've stayed in touch and stayed friends. And, he was the defense coordinator for my brother when he took over as head coach there at Opelika. And Eric's done a phenomenal job and continuing that tradition and continuing to win and have success. And he's just done a really, really good job. And I got a lot of respect for Eric.
Coach, it was good to talk to you.
All right, thank you, guys. Thanks for what you do.
We're now joined by Opelika's head coach, Eric Speakman. Coach Speakman, how are you doing this morning?
Hey, we're doing great. Glad to be here today.
Yep, you're up there in the AHSAA offices getting ready for your playoff meetings. You've got a semifinal match coming up, but last night you won in the quarterfinals. You took on Hueytown and beat them 45-24. Can you just recap that game's events and talk about how that game went?
Oh, yeah, it was a great game. A lot of excitement in the game. Started off early with Hueytown scoring a couple early touchdowns on us, and they had 2 great running backs, a really good quarterback, big-time receiver, and And then our offense really got it going. We had a running back, Eric Watts, rushed for over 300 yards last night and had 3 touchdowns. And he had a great game for us. And J.D. Tolbert had a big night for us running the football.
And, Coach, you've had a great season, only 1 loss to Central Phoenix. Can you just talk about taking on all those teams and win your region and how this season has prepared you to make it to the semifinals?
Yeah, well, we had a really tough schedule, especially early on. We played Callaway out of Georgia, who is still playing in the 2A playoffs in Georgia, and played Auburn week 2, who just played last night in the semifinals in 7A, versus Central, who we also played game 5, and that was our only loss this year. And we played a tough schedule early. Had Wetumpka early, who played deep in the playoffs this year. So we think that prepared us for this stretch run here in the playoffs.
Now you advance to the 6A semifinals. You'll be traveling to Spanish Fort. Spanish Fort, a team that's kind of gone on quite a little bit of a run here. They took on Park Crossing, the other 4 seed in 6A, and they'll be hosting you at Toro Stadium. Can you just talk about what you know about Spanish Fort up to this point, going into their game this Friday?
We've seen it on film, a couple crossover games from when we were getting ready to play St. Paul's, and Ben's done a great job of getting his team ready here in the playoffs. And Ben and I actually worked together at Opelika a long time ago. We're really good friends, talk a lot during the season. So, as far as their team, we don't know a lot yet. We'll start working on them today. But I know he's got some great players and great coaches, and they do a great job at Spanish Fort. Yeah,
you and Spanish Fort's head coach Ben Blackman served together at Opelika. And this game between Opelika and Opelika and Spanish Fort will be our WOTM game of the week. But can you just expand more on your relationship with Coach Blackman and get to know him and what it's like to meet him in a semifinal game? Just a great friend of yours.
Yeah, back in 2001 we started working together at Opelika, and I think Ben was with us till 2007 when he took over down at Greenville. And even since then we've stayed in touch. And of course, Brian, his brother, was our head coach for so long. Brian and I worked together for 17 years at Opelika. And, Ben's just a great friend, and, we'll compete for a couple hours on Friday night, and then we'll be friends after. But, it's a lot of fun when you get to play guys that you really respect and in the business, and, you talk and throw ideas around towards each other during the off season. And then now we're getting to play in a really big game, but the good thing is neither one of us are playing each other. It'll be all about our kids.
That's right. And, Coach, we wish you the best of luck in your matchup. Remember, this will be our WOTM game of the week between Spanish Fort and Opelika. Winner advances to Jordan-Hare Stadium in the 6A final. Coach, it was good to talk to you this morning.
Hey, thank you for having us.
Thank you. That was Opelika's head coach, Eric Speakman. Back with more AHSAA Weekly after this.
WOTM, your new home for high school sports in Alabama. The road to Jordan-Hare goes through WOTM this Friday for the Class 6A South semifinal. The Opelika Bulldogs traveling to Spanish Fort to take on the Toros. And stay with WOTM December 4th at 7 p.m. for live coverage of the 7A State Championship game with defending champion Central Phoenix City in a rematch with the Thompson Warriors. WOTM, your exclusive TV home for the AHSAA Super 7.
Back on AHSAA Weekly, now joined by Fife head coach Paul Benefield. Coach, how are you doing this morning?
Oh, I'm good, a little tired, but I'll make it, getting old.
Well, you did have a game last night with Red Bay, taking them on in the quarterfinals. And, Coach, it wasn't much of a contest in the end. I believe you won 45-6. Can you just talk about how that game went for you?
Well, we kind of jumped out ahead of them, and I know that's a long trip. I've been to Red Bay before, so I know it's just as far from Red Bay to Fife as it is there. So we kind of got ahead early, and it was a rainy night, and so I guess being on the road and us getting ahead like we did, we had an easier time than I thought we would. But they're a real physical team and beat us up a little bit, so we're hoping to get everybody iced down and ready to go.
Coach, pretty well-known, well-established that at Fife you run the wing tee. You just want to run the ball a lot. And you talk about the physicality of Red Bay, but your team also brings a physical presence. What do you think about running the football that much? How does that build that sort of will here late in the season to just keep going and keep grinding and just be as physical as you possibly can be against these other playoff teams?
Well, you hope you have an advantage being like that, but, it's just every team's physical at this point in time, and they didn't get to where they're at by not being. So we're going to do what we do, and they'll do what they do. And they're two good teams, like it ought to be in the semifinals. And one probably makes the least mistakes, or come out on top.
You do have that semifinal matchup. It's a region rematch with Collinsville. Coach, can you just talk about what you already know about Collinsville and what you're looking forward to in this upcoming semifinal game?
Well, they're explosive on offense, and they're physical on defense, and quarterback, is really good and throwing in, and he's just all kinds of problems there when you got a quarterback like Caleb Jones. But their kids, they play defense too tough, and it's nothing to nothing, and the life's game don't matter right now.
Coach, good luck to you. And one last question before you go. Knowing what kind of offense you run, when can we expect the next passing academy camp at Fife?
I'm working on a passing academy right now. If we can get to 40 passes this year, we're going to have one, maybe 50.
Well, that'd be outstanding, Coach. Good to talk to you, and wish you luck in your upcoming game against Collinsville this Friday.
You too. Thank you.
Now joined by Collinsville head coach Ernie Willingham. Coach, how are you doing this morning?
Doing good.
Coach, you advance in the quarterfinals, pulling off a victory. Can you talk about how that game went last night?
Yeah, that was a tough game. North Sand Mountain's improved a lot since the first time. It was our second time to play them. They were in our region, and they got the opening kickoff, and real explosive. Landon Green, their quarterback, is really, really good, and they scored first, and we were playing from behind, and we tied up 7-7, and then they scored again, and a matter of fact, the first quarter ended there, and then we scored again to make it 14, and then they had a fumble. They threw a little bubble screen, and we got a turnover and got a short field, and we went up 21-14, and I think they scored next. They made it 21-21 right before half, and then we kicked a field goal. We were ahead 24-21 at halftime, and then in the second half we scored first, so we were up 2 scores. And they only scored 1 touchdown in the second half. We stopped them several times in the second half. Got a little better pressure on the quarterback. He was really good, but my defensive ends played really good, and we kept some pressure on him in the second half. And they scored. They cut the score to 30-28, and then we got a pick 6 right at the. It wasn't too much time. 4 minutes left in the game or something. We got a pick 6 to ice it.
Coach, you pull off the victory over North Sand Mountain, the region opponent. Now you've got another region opponent coming up. You're taking on Fife, the region winner. Coach, what have you learned from the first game this season? I believe you lost 24-3, and what are you going to take from that game going into your rematch with them this upcoming Friday?
Well, they got a really good team. They're good all over. Their kicking game's good. Their offense is good. Defense is really fast. They got a good team, and it was a really good game the first time. It was 7-3 at halftime, and then they kicked a field goal in the middle of the third quarter, went up 10-3, and it stayed 10-3 till they scored with 6 minutes left to go up 2 scores, and then they stuck another one in late. So it was a really good game, and my kids play hard, and their kids play hard, and it was a real physical game. And we know we got our work cut out for us. They won 3 out of the last 5 state championships, but we're looking forward to going back out there again.
And Coach, I know you heard the interview with the Fife head coach Paul Benefield. You think you know any secrets about his game plan coming up, whether he might run the ball a lot or not?
Yeah, he don't have any secrets. He's thrown it. I heard you talking to him too about a passing academy. If he has a passing academy, I'm going, because he's attempted 34 passes this year, completed 22, and 7 of those are touchdowns. So you start looking at their passing game. It's pretty good, because you got to sell out on the run pretty good. And the quarterback the Pyron kid, he's a great quarterback. If he was playing in a spread system, he'd have 2,000 or 3,000 yards himself. He's a big old kid, 6'3", 205. He can throw it probably 75 yards in there. They got a really good passing game, but he plays, he's a run-oriented offense, and they just do a good job with everything they do.
Coach, it's not about quantity, it's about quality, and they are a very efficient team, but so are you. You've made it to the semifinals of the 2A playoffs, and Coach, we wish you the best of luck heading into your game with Fife this upcoming Friday. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
That's Coach Ernie Willingham of Collinsville High School as they take on Fife this Friday. Back with more AHSAA Weekly after this.
Hot under the collar because your basement is full of water? Call a local company you can trust. AHSAA Foundation Solutions. We use the most advanced water management system to stop water from invading your basement for good. Get a free estimate from AHSAA Foundations.
Right now, we're going to take you to the offices of the Alabama High School Athletic Association in Montgomery. The Director of Officials for the AHSAA, Mark Jones, joins us once again. Mark, glad to have you with us again on this week's show.
John, it's always glad to be with you.
Well, we're talking about instant replay. The games are becoming really, really important. We had the semifinals last week, actually in 7A. Semifinals coming up this week in classes 1A through 6A, and a lot of instant replay. That was a big part of both of the 7A semifinal games last week, particularly in that Central Phoenix City and Auburn game. You had 3 calls in that game that came down to instant replay. Tell us about that.
Yeah, John, I think since we've had the experiment in the 2 years that we've had the experiment, this past weekend was the best selling point for instant replay that we've had. I was fortunate enough to be at the Central Phoenix City game where we had 3 replays and all 3 were overturned in the first quarter. I was saying to myself then, this has got to be a record, especially in high school. Well, it probably is in high school because it's only in the early years of it, but we had 3 big plays early in the game. One, Auburn was going for it on 4th down. They were at the 32-yard line, needing to reach the 33 for a first down, and they measured, and in the measurement, it gave them a first down. But when you came back and watched the replay, the spot was incorrect, and they were well short of the 33-yard line and overturned the call, which gave the ball to Central Phoenix City deep in Auburn territory. Central Phoenix City went on in and scored, and on the ensuing kickoff during the return, Auburn was going towards the sideline, and as the runner was being tackled, he lost control of the ball prior to his knee being down. And it's a tough call for an official to make in that situation because you're looking at the knee, you're looking at the tackle, and the ball, and it was a difficult call for the official, and he ruled that the player was down prior to losing control of the ball. Well, instant replay showed that he did lose control of the ball just before his knee touched the ground, and it was overturned, which gave the ball to Central Phoenix City again, deep in Auburn territory. Both those were very close, but the replay was indisputable for good overturns. Then later in the first quarter, Central Phoenix City threw a pass, and it was questionable whether or not he caught the ball or not. The officials ruled that he did catch the ball, and he was down prior to losing control of the ball. So Auburn challenged that it was a fumble. Well, after review, the officials determined that it was not a catch and it was an incomplete pass. So even though Auburn, in a sense, won that challenge, they lost because they would have lost yardage on that play. So unfortunately, Auburn got the short end of all 3 of those challenges.
Mark, outstanding information for our high school football fans across the state of Alabama. Looking forward to seeing instant replay in use at Jordan-Hare Stadium. Looking forward to seeing you down at Jordan-Hare Stadium for the Super 7 state championships. Thank you for joining us here on the AHSAA Weekly.
Thank you, John. You make sure you bring good weather there.
We'll try our best. Mark Jones, Director of Officials for the Alabama High School Athletic Association, joining us once again this week on the AHSAA Weekly. Back in just a moment.
Things feeling a little uneven at home? AHSAA Foundation Solutions will fix your uneven concrete sidewalk, driveway, or basement in no time. Locally owned and accredited, AHSAA Foundation Solutions will come up with the right fix for you. Get a free estimate from AHSAA Foundations.
Closing out this week's edition of the AHSAA Weekly, semifinal playoff games, big ones all across the state of Alabama. One of the biggest ones we're going to have for you live right here on WOTM across the state of Alabama. That 6A semifinal game between the Opelika Bulldogs and the Spanish Fort Toros. We'll see you next week to talk about the Super 7 here on the AHSAA Weekly.